Okay, so I am now the manager of the Animal Welfare Committee at the CVMA, and so I'm just going to talk to you a little bit about what it is that we do and how you can participate. Uh-oh, button's not working.
Oh.
Click on the slide. Arrow's not working.
Ay, ay, ay.
Okay, so the CVMA is the only national organization representing all veterinarians in Canada. So there are a lot of national organizations for different commodity groups, but there's no national organization because it's a provincially run profession. The only national association that there is CVMA. So we are comprised of a council of representatives from the provinces. So each province has a VMA. Each VMA will nominate a representative to sit on our council. So there are voluntary provinces where you don't have to be a member. There are mandatory provinces where you become a member as soon as you pay for your licensure. However, even if you don't become a member, you are represented by your member of council. We also have 600 volunteers that participate in the various committees, and I'll go through those committees in a couple of minutes. We have an administrative CEO who will be retiring in the end of January, so we're looking for a new CEO. We have several staff liaisons, but only 2 veterinarian staff liaisons. That's myself and the manager of the National Issues Committee. So we represent more than 20,000 veterinarians. So there are right now, 20,000 veterinarians and veterinary technicians. There are 14,500 veterinarians in Canada at this time and about 9,300 RVTs. And so we represent all of them. Our membership is extremely diverse. So probably just in this room, you've probably got people that are going to go into companion animals, and people are going to go into swine medicine, whatever it is, and we represent you all. So we have membership that has very diverse, looks at the world through very diverse lenses, but we need to represent everybody. So how do we do that? It's tough. It isn't easy. So these are the committees that we have, and what I've done is I've highlighted in red the committees that are somewhat tangential to animal welfare. So the executive committee is made up of 5 people that are all around the issue, the job of president. So you've got an executive member who will become the president-elect. You've got the president-elect, you've got the president, you've got the immediate past president, and you've got the CEOs on that executive committee. So they make the big decisions about finance and that kind of thing. Then we have council, and I told you that we have a representative from every province. The Animal Welfare Committee, that's us. We have external representations. So many of our members sit on different organizations, the board of different organizations. Some of them are animal welfare, some of them have nothing to do with animal welfare. They're more about wellness or other things. We have a CVMA BC chapter board. So in British Columbia, there's a CVMA chapter. So we have a board that represents them. We have the National Issues Committee. So the National Issues Committee will look into more global things, although there's quite a lot of intersection with animal welfare. So they'll be looking at things like extra label drug use, climate change, that kind of thing. Then there's the Professional Development Committee, and so I will work with them for the animal welfare track for the convention. And then the students of the CVMA, which I imagine several of you are already members of. So CVMA and the changes in animal welfare. So when I graduated in the mid-1980s, animal welfare was basically, if it's producing, okay, it's got good welfare. It wasn't a thing. And over the years, that has changed. And a lot of it is because of the internet, because of social media, and that has led to echo chambers and activism. Now you've got animal welfare law. There's an actual discipline in law that's strictly related to animal welfare. As you know, it's in the vet curriculum. You can get boarded in animal welfare. Industries now, because of social license, if you know what social license is, so it's the, the ability to do whatever you're doing and you're given permission by society to do that because there's a certain belief system that you are doing what you need to be doing. Industries are now, even industries that have historically been challenging, are now have an animal welfare representative on their various boards, and so even in these industries that have been somewhat on the periphery of animal welfare practices are now getting into the practice of prioritizing animal welfare. There's also government initiatives. I don't know if any of you here have heard about the Animal Welfare Caucus. So all of the parties have one representative in the Animal Welfare Caucus. We have presented to them in the past, and I'll go over some of the things that we presented to them. Of course, there's the Campbell Centre and other animal welfare centers in Canada. And lastly, we send out a survey every 3 years. And from that survey, we find out what the priorities are for veterinarians in this country and veterinary students. And the last three that we got, and we're sending out a new survey in a couple of months, was leadership on national issues and animal welfare advocacy and work-life balance. So those are the three priorities that veterinarians are concerned about. So the Animal Welfare Committee itself. So we are the largest committee that CVMA has. We have 11 voting members, 7 ex officios, and the ex officios are veterinarians and affiliated professionals that send a representative to our committee, but they are not voting. So that is CFIA has one, KLAM, so the Canadian Association of Lab Animal Medicine, the Canadian Council on Animal Care, the RVTTC, OVMA, and I'm forgetting one, but I can't remember who it is. But sorry?
Humane Canada?
Right, sorry. Humane Canada is the last one. So our committee we try to represent the broad distribution of veterinarians in the country on our committee. And so it is made up of members with wide practice type, but also geographical distribution. So we have representatives from British Columbia, we have representatives all across the country to the Atlantic provinces. We also have people that are in companion animal, shelter. We have in our auxiliary, that I'll talk about in a second. We have somebody who's in aquaculture. We have in industry, poultry, ethology, the whole spectrum. We try to represent as best we can. Clearly, we can't have everybody in there, but we do have a pretty good sampling to have a lot of different voices in our various initiatives. Our focus is animal welfare principles. So we don't go by commodity group. So when we're looking at a particular topic, what we will do is focus on the principles for whatever that let's say we're talking about a position statement, whatever that position statement is, so that a companion animal vet has every bit as much a voice in a position statement on call cows as the dairy vet. And we feel that that's important because every position statement and every issue, everything that we publish and put out there has to represent all of our membership, not just that commodity group. But because we're so diverse, even in this group, consensus is challenging. And now more than ever, with views being polarized, with people feeling that they can say pretty much anything they want to say, and I'm not saying that's for veterinarians, but just in the general public, is that people's voices are a little bit maybe louder than they used to be in days gone by. And it's hard. It's hard to make sure that our positions and everything that we put out there is representative of our entire membership. So our committee meets frequently, and Bettina on the line will agree that I send out information daily to our members. sometimes multiple times daily.
Sometimes 10 times daily.
Sometimes 10 times
15.
daily.
It's
They don't miss me
busy.
when I'm gone. And that's because there's a lot to deal with in animal welfare. And, you know, in animal welfare isn't, you know, we're going to go picket in front of, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about animal welfare principles. So it's important to make that distinction. So we will meet at least quarterly as a group, but only one of those will be face-to-face. And so we will meet face-to-face once a year, you know, pandemic aside, once a year in March, and everything is covered. And I'm adding that because Derek asked me to mention if costs were covered. Yes, for the voting members, all the costs are covered. Our working groups, however, and so if we write a position, we'll have various people on a working group. Let's say of the 24 people that are on the committee, we might have 3 or 4 that are on a particular project. So they'll meet more often, and that's usually virtually. We get media feeds from our communications people, and that comes in every day. So they look for keywords, anything that's of relevance to animal welfare that might be interesting. We send it out to the Animal Welfare Committee. Lots of times that sparks a lot of conversation. And then we have to make decisions. Well, are we going to go any further with this? Are we going to do anything about it? Are we going to just wait and see what happens? So there are a lot of decisions to be made. And as I said, daily communications. So this is a very busy file or a slide, and it's busy on purpose. It's to show you the kinds of things that we're involved in. So let's say there's something happens in the media. So if you probably are all familiar with the pennebarb shortage. When the factory exploded, there was no pennebarb. There was a fear that there would be no pennebarb. We had to act very quickly to make sure that practitioners who use pennebarb routinely for euthanasia knew that there were alternatives. And so we had to bring a bunch of people together. The Canadian, Animal Health Institute. The Canadian Animal Health Institute was part and parcel of this. We brought everybody together and sent out alternative methodologies for euthanasia. And of course, the Air Ukraine brachycephalic deaths, we had to act on that. That actually set us down a whole set of steps that I'll talk about in a minute. We provide articles for the CBJ, either as individuals or as part of a group. And Bettina Online is the editor of the Ethical Question of the Month. So questions come in, she'll parse them. It goes out to ethologists, and they will answer that ethical question.
Just jumping in here.
Yep.
Michelle, a shameless plug for the column. I'm hoping that the students are reading the column, and what I'm hoping more is that we might expect some questions from them. Maybe they have identified some welfare concern, ethical welfare concerns in the process of their education, or they've encountered things already in the field that they would like to have our ethicists comment on. And we would, questions are always welcome.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, absolutely. Write your questions in, anything that concerns you, and you can see them in the ethical question of the month. In fact, there was an ethical question of the month in May of this year on PMSG, and I just saw it published in a Copenhagen paper yesterday. So those things have feet and or legs, and you will. You know, sometimes it seems small, just a little question that you're interested in, and all of a sudden you start to see it take off. Of course, we develop, contribute, and revise position statements and codes of practice, our own codes of practice and the NPAC codes of practice. And as I'm sure you've all witnessed, we have lots of position statements on the go and already published. We sit on various external committees and other organizations. We provide feedback to external organizations. So if the OIE puts out a chapter, I guess it's not called OIE anymore, the World Organization for Animal Health, puts out a chapter, we're asked to have a look at it. The USDA, a new rule, we're asked to weigh in on it. If NFAC has a new code, we're asked to weigh in on it, that kind of thing. We respond to comments or questions in the media, members, and directly from the public. People seem to think that we are a regulatory body. As you probably all know, we are not a regulatory body. We're an advocacy support body for veterinarians. That said, people don't know that. And we get some interesting letters that we have to send to the appropriate VMAs. We lobby for improvements to government. That's what we did with a CFIA for the humane transport regulations. Also we presented a whole bunch of stuff to the caucus. And now, of course, we're petitioning and lobbying against strychnine, as you're probably aware, and leading relevant campaigns as CVMA ourselves and also with partners. And I wrote PMSG in there because we're working right now with FVE, so the Federation of Veterinarians of Europe, and the World Veterinary Association, and hopefully with AVMA, if we can get them on board, to improve conditions for mares on PMSG farms. Did you have anything to add, Bettina, about that?
No, I think that's exciting news about the Copenhagen thing and getting the word out there. I think one of the important things about PMSG, it's another one of those hidden animal welfare disasters. And if you care about horses and you know anything about horse sort of ethology and management, the conditions on these farms are horrific. But it's a bit more of a global issue because PMSG is used in production animal medicine. So somebody that has let's say, I don't know, they're growing organic pig pork, for example. If they're using PMSG that comes from one of these sources and there is no ethical source of PMSG, that is a pretty global issue that no one seems to know anything about. Anyone that's interested in it, there's lots of ugly YouTube videos for you to find, sadly.
Yes, thank you. Okay. Oops. The Animal Welfare Committee and the National Issues Committee, we have a lot of intersex, and so this is a plug for National Issues. And National Issues handles antimicrobial stewardship, and you're probably all aware of the global initiative to reduce antimicrobial dependency. And to that, the program is SAVI, which stands for the Stewardship of Antimicrobials by Veterinarians Initiative. And part of that is the First Line app. I don't know if you've been introduced to the First Line app, but it's pretty cool. And we'll have more stuff on it as time goes by. And one of the things, of course, will be alternatives to antimicrobials. There's the national standard for assistive animals. So we have a position on service dogs, but we were approached by the Canadian Foundation for Animal Support Services, which isn't just restricted to dogs, to come up with a national standard. So we're involved in it, sort of, kind of peripherally. There are many NIC-led position statements that animal welfare is part of. We deal with emergent issues response, like the pentabarb shortage. And right now we're looking at a green practice initiative, and we're both committees are involved in that. Okay. It's not going again. Okay, position statements. So the position statement development in the old days used to be, do the right thing, trust your vet, and they were somewhat meaningless. But as time has gone by, more research has evolved. People have become more demanding about content. We were instructed by our membership to have stronger position statements. That has morphed into now quite a project. And so they have to all be evidence-based. They must be defendable. And lots of times we are held accountable for the material in them. So there's a lot of work that goes into these, all by volunteers. The issues are under constant review. So even if we have a position statement, new research comes out, we have to potentially amend it. So they're prioritized using an objective algorithm. So somebody says, I want you to do a position statement on fireworks. We think that's a great idea. You should have a position statement on fireworks. We would then put them into this algorithm. And so it's basically importance to animal welfare on one scale and relevance to CVMA on the other scale. And if it hits the high priority, and it's much more complicated than this. However, this is just the summary. Once it hits that red box, then we will have a position statement or something else for it. And then once we have identified it as a high priority, then begins down this multi-step process. So the topic is selected. It has to rate high on the algorithm. It has to be approved in principle by the council, which, as I said, has representation from all the different provinces. So everybody has a decision as to whether or not we go down that route. Then we draft it by a working group, has to go to the Animal Welfare Committee. Then it goes to various subject matter experts. Like right now, we're working on one on sentience. So both Georgia and Derek would be invited to help us with the draft on that. Then it would come back, go back to the working group, go to the national species groups, which are the national leads of each commodity veterinary group, back to the working group, translation, member board, where we get tons of comments, back to the working group, back to the Animal Welfare Committee, back to council, et cetera, et cetera. So they can take years. And if there's a lot of research that's been done, our members do the research. So if anybody here is interested in doing some research on some of these position statements, feel free to let me know. So in the past 18 months, we've published 22 position statements, 8 on farmed animals, 8 on exotic animals, wildlife and laboratory animals, 4 on companion animals, and 2 general. And the 2 general are things that apply to all different categories, which would be euthanasia and pain control. We have 8 position statements that are in 5-year reviews. So every 5 years we have to renew them unless something happens earlier, at which time we have to amend earlier. And there are 4 new ones that are in development right now. Of the 4 new ones that are in development right now, to meet that expectation of stronger position statements, we are now looking at animal sentience, transport of farm animals, welfare of animals at auction markets, and that's almost ready to go to the member board, and responsible breeding of animals. These are going to be somewhat foundational and will underpin a lot of the other position statements that we have. So we need to get them right. So we're involved in codes of practice. The ones on the left of the screen are the NFAC codes of practice. This one only goes up to 2018, but I mean we've been continuing them right up until recently. The goat code was just revised a couple of weeks ago, published a couple of weeks ago, and we also have a salmonid code of practice with NFAC at this time. And so all of these animals that are in the column are animals for which there is a code. Not every commodity has a code. They have to ask for it first. But these are the ones that exist right now. On the right side are the CVMA codes of practice. So the one with the kind of shaded logo, that's the cattery code of practice. That one, so we're supposed to be renewing them every 5 years. That one is circa 2009. It is under review right now. It's a big, big job. And again, very busy volunteers are participating in this. So it's a slow process, but we've gotten quite far. The kennel code of practice is due for revision in 2023. So the people that are working on the cattery code are probably going to pick that one up, and that will be renewed hopefully by the end of 2023. We've also been asked to write a code for caged birds and for small mammals. So they'll be done in that sequence: cattery code, the kennel code, the aviary code, small mammal code. Bettina, do you have anything to add? Just a little sidebar on the aviary code. That one was driven by the BC SPCA,
And that came born out of that debacle with the parrot rescue that was on Vancouver Island, where the lady that ran the parrot rescue was a legitimized hoarder and had about 800 parrots and no succession plan, and then passed away quite suddenly. And there was horrendous welfare issues there. But suddenly the BCSPCA was burdened with trying to treat about 200 sick parrots, or parrots with various health problems, and rehome 800. And I will say, I'll give them credit, they didn't euthanize any of them. It became a national effort. But after that, they said, surely we need some kind of regulation to stop this kind of thing happening again. And that is kind of seems to be a bit of the rule of big national animal welfare issues. The time we get improvements is there's a great big public national disaster / embarrassment, and then welfare improves. So we're kind of a disaster-driven group.
So true. Okay, so our lobbying efforts. So we lobbied the Government of Canada Animal Welfare Caucus, but we were only given 10 minutes to present, so we had to pick and choose what we were going to talk about. So we talked about the veterinary shortage and what the Government of Canada can do, even though it's a provincial oversight. We talked about the drug shortage and the how they could hasten the approval process for drugs that are approved in other countries. The lack of animal welfare law harmonization is something. So I used to work for CFIA, and where federal and provincial laws intersect is a huge gap that animals fall into. And as you have different animal welfare legislation in different provinces, that's also a gap. So animals might be, so if you allow ear cropping in Ontario, but not in Nova Scotia, somebody might be tempted to move their animal from Nova Scotia to Ontario to get the cropped and then ship them back to Nova Scotia. Clearly an animal welfare issue. So if it was harmonized nationally, that wouldn't be a problem. Of course, we talked about the approval of strychnine for use as a predicide. The slaughter horse, and you probably are all aware that US horses are not slaughtered in the US, and so they're shipped to Canada or Mexico for slaughter. And some of the horses that are coming shouldn't be transported, certainly not the long distances that they're being transported now. And so we're working with AVMA to see if we can find a solution to this. Dog importation, of course, has its own raft of risks as well. So we did present that as well. And at the time, the humane transport regulations that came into force in 2020 were delayed. The most controversial parts of it were the feed, water, and rest time interval maximums, and they were delayed by 2 years because of industry pressure. And so we kind of wanted to make sure we held their feet to the fire to make sure that in 2022 they would fully enforce the new humane transport regulations. So partnering. So we partner with the National Farmed Animal Care Council. We sit on the board of directors, on the executive. Bettina right here is the new vice chair, the first ever non-industry vice chair that NPAC has had. So kudos to Bettina. We have subject matter experts on co-development committees. They don't have to be members. We pick the best subject matter expert. And we participate in code review, and we comment on the public comment period. We're on the board of directors of CCAC. We sit on the Animal Welfare Judging and Assessment Competition Advisory Board, and we attend the Animal Welfare Committee of the AVMA, and they attend our yearly meetings. We also sit on the Animal Welfare Committee of Animal Health Canada, the Canadian Association of Zoos and Aquaria, the International Coalition for Extreme Conformation in Dogs, which is a nascent organization, but moving along quickly, the Canadian Association of Fairs and Exhibitions, the National Companion Animal Coalition, the Humane Canada. We're partners in the Violence Link, which is the link between violence to animals and violence to people. PetSmart Charities for vet access for underserviced or under-resourced people. And we're part of ad hoc working groups such as dog importation, environmental lead toxicity. When COVID was new, we worked with COVID in animals, publishing information through the, worked with the CFIA and PHAC to produce those documents. And right now, the new initiatives on PMSG, we're working with World Veterinary Association and FEE. This is brand new, so we'll be meeting with them in December. All kinds of things happening on that. So that's going to be our next campaign. Our current campaign is on extreme conformations in dogs, and this is what we've done to date. So as soon as the Air Ukraine incident happened, we issued a call to action, and that was for all stakeholders. So owners, breeders, prospective owners, marketers, whoever, veterinarians, whoever was involved, and a call to action for you to do your due diligence. We started a new position statement on responsible breeding. We held a webinar by the International Partnership for Dogs, CSO Brenda Bonnet, who many of you may know, back in, I don't remember when that was, probably in March, a multi-stakeholder symposium. So Canadian Kennel Club, industry was there, CVMA was there. Who else was there, Bettina? Industry, IPFD was there as well. We had a convention in July. We had set up 3 sessions. Unfortunately, the speaker had a death in the family, so couldn't attend, but that's an ongoing thing. Developed advertising guidelines for marketers to not use certain extreme representations of animals, both small animal and large animal. We're working with the National Companion Animal Coalition on responsible sourcing of animals, we call it ICE Dogs, towards a unified international effort for brachycephalics specifically, but also all extreme conformations. And recently met with the Cambridge lead on the respiratory function grading scheme, which is quite well established in the UK, to try to grade animals so that you only breed animals that don't have only breed up, and so we're wanting to introduce that to Canada. It's been piloted in the US, and so hopefully we'll be able to get that here. One of your soft tissue surgeons at OVC is one of the first trainers or trainees on the program in Canada. So longer term initiatives are national harmonization of animal welfare legislation, pain management webpage. Right now we have the WSAVA pain management guidelines for small animals. There's very, very little for large animals. So that is very much on our radar. Review of imports of animal-based products such as IJAO and PMSG. Codes, the kennel code revision, small animal, I already talked about that. Slaughter horse imports, better import oversight and enforcement of internationally sourced dogs. We did work with CFIA to improve the import requirements. We were only able to get them to improve the requirements for commercial dogs under 8 months. However, there's a lot of falsified documents, so a dog could easily be over 8 months or under 8 months, and they say that they're 9 months old, and so it managed to escape that. So, in conclusion, the CVMA Animal Welfare Committee is large, incredibly busy, as I hope you have sensed. We respond to priority animal welfare issues on behalf of CVMA, but also on behalf of RVTs. We partner with organizations that we feel is a good fit and that we can move animal welfare forward globally. We consult with subject matter experts such as Georgia and Derek, but many other people as well, and to make sure that our positions are defendable. We represent a broad range of opinion, practice areas, and geography, and I would invite you all to support the Animal Welfare Committee, but also join the CVMA, because there's a lot of other things that we do for you. So how can you get involved? You can comment on the position statements. You can contribute to the CVJ Ethical Question of the Month. reach out to us. I mean, if you reach out to me, I will answer you. If there's something that you're concerned about, something that you've seen in the news, something that you like roadside zoos on W5. Do you have a concern about that? You can ask me, what are you doing about it? You know, we'll answer you. You can volunteer. We're happy for you to do research for us, that's for sure. Suggest a speaker if anything comes up that you feel would be interesting, and just please challenge us to do more for you. This is my shameless plug for Canadian Guide Dogs for the Blind. I have a foster dog, that's Wilmer on the left, and I wrote an article for CVJ encouraging veterinarians to take these guys. I think that we're pretty well suited for that task. And I want to thank you all for being here and for everything that you do. You guys are the animal welfare leaders of tomorrow. And I really hope that you'll participate in the things that we do, because we do a lot for animal welfare, as you do. Anything to add, Bettina?
I'd just like to encourage participation. When I graduated in 1989, animal welfare wasn't even discussed at vet school, particularly. We had somebody from the CVMA came and talked about animal welfare on a lunchtime meeting to the graduating class, and that was my animal welfare training at vet school. And we've just come leaps and bounds with respect to that, but that means we can just do more faster. The old way was you had to be out there in the trenches for 30-35 years before you had the time to gain the knowledge so that you could give back in this area. And Michelle and I often laugh and say that you guys, when you guys graduate, you are where we were 35 years in. So we're really looking forward to the momentum that the next generation of veterinarians is going to bring to our mission.